Welcome. Although this is my first time here, so maybe someone can welcome me for a moment.
Welcome, Jerry.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's my pleasure to be here. I'm Jerry Nash. I am chairman of the Chess and Education Commission for FIDE. I'm assuming you all know what FIDE is. Yes?
Yep.
Okay. I work with teachers on a regular basis across the United States and other countries. It's our pleasure to be here for this series of workshops. This is sponsored, of course, by FIDE, the Chess and Education Commission, as well as the IOC, the International Olympic Committee. Our thanks go to John and Brigitte for helping us to organize this day. Special thanks also goes to the Secretary of the Chess and Education Commission, Rita Atkins, who's right here, and she worked with John and Brigitte to help organize this day. Thank you for being here. This is designed to be a series of workshops, so not as formal as a conference. So if you have a question, I think most of the presenters will be happy to stop for a moment, answer any questions. I'm going to be talking about using chess, particularly chess and education, to introduce critical thinking skills. Since you are all chess players, and I assumed that you would be, we're going to start with a game. So this will be very interactive. And there are pencils, I think, if you want to take notes. I'm going to have some handouts in just a moment as we get into this. This is an activity called Build Your Army. So now you'll need to access your boards, and you'll need your pieces on the table where you can access them if you're playing white or black. So go ahead and put your pieces out, separate them into white and black, and then with your game partner, once you finish that, give me a thumbs up, and then I'll tell you what the activity is about. Yes. Okay, so as you're placing the pieces on the board, I do have the rules of the game. So white will start first, and you'll place one piece on the board. Then it will be black's turn. And black must place a piece on the board, but black cannot place a piece on the board where it could be captured by the white piece. So for example, if I put a rook right here, and now it's black's turn, I could put a rook right here because it can't be captured. Where could I not place the black rook? On the D file or the fifth rank, okay? And I couldn't put it on top of that one. So I can't put it anywhere here, I can't put it anywhere here. By the way, in asking you those directions and in the responses that you just gave me, there was an assumption of chess knowledge. And so we tend to take that for granted unless we're working with very young students. And I remember one lesson I was giving to some elementary school students, and it was a mixed group. It was like first grade through 7th or 8th grade. And I start talking about the names of the squares, and I see these little children on the front row, and they are almost in tears. Mr. Nash, I don't know all my letters. And Mr. Nash, I don't know all my numbers. It's okay. I realized, okay, yeah, we're going to skip this part right now. Okay, so this is called Building Your Army. What happens is, as you put pieces on the board, your goal is to get as many and as expensive pieces onto the board as you possibly can. This is a timed activity, and so you'll need to work quickly. So I'll call time, and then the black will be allowed to place their last piece on the board, and then the winner will be the one who has the most number of points, assuming 5 points for a rook, 9 for a queen, that sort of thing. So who has the most points on the board. It doesn't matter if you place a piece where you could capture something as long as that piece can't be captured by one of the opponents. So these are good questions. So yes, you could put a piece down where it's trying to capture something, but because it came second, it's okay. But just remember, if it's a rook or a queen, if you're attacking it, it's also attacking you. Okay, so we only need one queen on the board. So let's think about this from a critical thinking standpoint, because again, yes, it's a fun game. One of the challenges that we worked on during the activity, and you asked questions to clarify, what are the rules? And so when you're working with students, that's a critical part of it. What are the rules to the game? Because again, we might think, oh, really clear explanation. Well, given some of our students, did they actually listen when we were giving, but were our instructions clear enough, or do they need to be reinforced? And there's one thing to say it, and then there's another thing to see it actually on the board. So when you're working with students, there are multiple layers of instruction going on. You know, there's the game, but then there's how do you play the game. And so you were asking questions as we went along, and those were good questions, so you can expect that. So that's part of the critical thinking process. How do you understand the game itself? And then you pointed out a strategy of, well, there were various strategies. How do I put high value pieces on the board? How do I make them do different jobs, not the same job? You know, does it really help to put my queen and both rooks on the same file? Not really, no. They're all doing the same job. So these are all these strategic thinking. There's something else going on. As you were looking, you were trying to find squares that were safe, correct? In order to do that, what did you have to do? So as you're putting those pieces there, not only where they sit, but where they can move to. And for some students, the challenge is spatial, is seeing across that amount of space. And depending on their age, this can be extremely difficult. So for example, if I put, well, we're going to do this activity in just a moment. If I put those two pawns on the board and I say we're going to have a race, who's going to win the race? For very young students, this is an extremely difficult activity because that's too much space for them to be able to encounter, to be able to visualize, to see. So you know, those are some of the things, depending on the age group. It's not just the critical thinking, but it's the spatial, their vision that's going to be have an impact. And while I really like using demonstration boards, there is a translation process between this board and this board. This is two-dimensional, this is three-dimensional. And early on when I was coaching, I was a tremendous coach. I was so terrific. I explained the lesson and they understood that. And then they got to the board and it was like they had never seen that in their entire lives. And I'm thinking, we just covered, I just taught, how can you? And it took a while for me to realize, you know, there is that translation process. And we cannot take that for granted, especially amongst younger students. In general, you know, again, you'll have exceptions, but in general, most younger students, this will be very difficult. So just to give you, so this game that we just played, Build Your Army, is designed to help you to ease into the idea of the critical thinking skills that are taking place. You were using them. I heard strategic thinking. I heard about how do you use pieces, how do you maximize their effectiveness, which are the more expensive pieces. So there were various aspects of strategic thinking that were taking place. And this is, you know, we didn't really need to know anything about check or checkmate or anything else. We just needed to know the names of the pieces. Well, really didn't need to know the names of the pieces, would be helpful, but we needed to know the pieces and how they moved and how they captured. That was the key thing. And so you can do this game with fairly minimal chess knowledge, and at the same time, you're impacting critical thinking skills at sort of a basic level.
Before we go there, I want to show you a little method. I don't know if you know this method, 3-2-1 method. Where if someone, this also helps if you do public speaking or interviews or something like that, and people ask you questions and you're not 100% sure what it is, you know, you need to answer something. So you use the 3-2-1 method. You give yourself 3 seconds to think about an answer. Three things, these 3 things. So if someone throws a topic to you, you think of one thing about that topic. One thing about that topic. Okay? Then, next thing, you think about 2 types, or whatever the topic is, 2 types. And the third thing is 3 steps. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for instance, avocado. Okay? One thing, what pops into your mind? One thing about avocado?
Green.
It's green. Okay. 2 types?
Crushed avocado and solid avocado.
Yeah, you can eat it crushed or solid. 3 steps?
How to make guacamole.
Yeah. So you crush the avocado, you put some, what do you put on? Lemon. And some tomato. And you have your guacamole. Okay. So I want you to try this with someone, because this is quite a lot of fun. But we are going to use some of the elements that we mentioned here today, all right, to do this. And I want you to try this method when you have to teach children something and you have to break it down into something very simple. This might help you to break it down. This is for you as an educator. I'm helping you to break this down. Don't do this to the kids now. This is to help you to break your thoughts and knowledge down to teach the kids. So the one thing about a pin is that it's stuck. Okay, 2 types. We can talk about a relative and a absolute pin, or, I mean, we don't have to teach the kids those words, but we know what it is. The one is where you pin something on the king, so it's an illegal move to move it away, and the other one is when it's pinned on something bigger, so they can move it away, but it may be not the best move. All right, 3 steps. Well, in my mind, what I would teach the kids is pin it, attack it, take it. You can use something else, but I want you to stick to this. If you teach them a new concept first, try this, and please come back to me and tell me if it works. But just this, to help them understand it, and then you can move into more elaborate and difficult ideas. But try this. It's about peace, happiness. All right? So this is what I would suggest, is when we come from the educational classroom, we move to club level, we explain to the kids that they need to speak to their pieces. John, you mentioned something about role play earlier. I think that works perfectly well. Speak to your pieces while they play. But you talk to your pieces. Are you happy, king? Are you happy, queen? Wait, who's not happy? Oh, these ones are still in their pajamas. They need to get out. Why aren't you happy? Where do you want to be? The beginning, we are going to teach them what is peace, happiness, and which pieces will be happy where and why. But again, you can break this down and the why can come on later on. Okay, so now let's see. This is what I thought. I wanted you to do this in your small groups, but I'm going to guide you a little bit in it because I could hear that you're going there anyway. So peace, happiness, or the happy places for each piece. This is just the basic. Just you can mention one thing. What will make this piece happy for now? The king, I heard king safety. We've got king safety, right? The king wants to be safe. The queen, this is my opinion. You're more than welcome to add or disagree, but she wants to multitask. She's happy if she multitasks. Like us ladies, you know? Like the mummy knows she can do 200 things and the second and third thing. Yes? So, multitasking. Now, if we think about this, if we say the queen wants to multitask, and we draw this back to both groups said controlling the center, peace development. Now, part of this, I'm sure you will tell the kids, don't bring your queen out too early, right? But now, if the queen cannot multitask, they won't bring we hope they won't bring the queen out, because she needs to, if she wants to go out, she must be able to multitask. So if the other pieces are not out, then she can't multitask because there's nothing to support her to multitask, for instance. But they will also know because sometimes we can bring the queen out quickly if you can win a piece or something. We don't want to discourage them completely, but they will know the queen can multitask. Then the next thing is the rook. Rook wants open files. Yes, he wants open files. But now again, we will get into why. Where does he want to? So he gets the open file and then what? All right? So the rook wants open files. The bishop wants long diagonals. Now they know what long and short diagonals are, but the bishop is happy when he has a long diagonal. Knights, a knight wants to be on the outpost. He wants to have that view, you know, that city view. And the pawn, well, I think passed and protected. Okay, the queen, she wants to multitask, all right? So help me with two types of queens. I was struggling with this one. Two types of queens, if we have to say now. We can have two different queens. One can be maybe one that's bored. She's sitting there, she has no place to go to multitask, and she's bored. The other one is working too hard maybe. You know, she's alone, she's working too hard, she's fighting the fight alone, and that one, like Rita would say, that might be the one in danger. Okay. So now methods to enhance multitasking abilities. I identified these. You can add or take away. I said space. She needs space. The more space she has, the bigger her attack, especially along the different types of lines, files, ranks, and diagonals. Yes. And also to help her multitask, she needs the support of other pieces. Because then, if especially attacking the king or squares around the king with a hanging piece, if there's another piece helping to attack the king, the piece at the king, then that helps a little bit. Protection by other pieces, like batteries and things like that. Also, weaknesses in game partner's position. And you spoke, Rita, you spoke about, your group spoke earlier about hanging pieces and making sure that your pieces are protected and so on. So if the queen wants to multitask, those hanging pieces that's her food, you know, that's brilliant for her. That will be a happy place. Hanging pieces enhances the queen's ability to multitask. Okay, then the rook. So he likes open files. But then what? This reminds me of, you know, the dog that runs and tries to chase the car. You know, the dogs in the street, and then a car drives by and the dog goes, wop, 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 and they catch the car, and then what? So this is, you get the open file, then what? What do you do? The rook wants to go to the 7th rank. This is his next step. Or, I mean, if he can checkmate, he wants to checkmate. But strategically, we are aiming for the 7th rank. Then we bring the other rook, double up. All right, and then we double on the 7th rank, for instance. But now, why the 7th rank? And again, we need to explain to them why the 7th rank. And those are the advantages of the rook on the 7th rank. But again, you can take this part, you can do first, and maybe show them one advantage of the rook on the 7th rank. The most obvious one is normally he attacks the pawn in their pajamas. You know, the pajama pawns are those that haven't moved yet. And what makes them weak is that they need babysitters. They can't be protected by other pawns. So they need to be protected by bigger pieces. So you can maybe add one of those, and then for the next session, you can add the other 2 points. So it attacks the pawns on their pajamas, locks the king on the 8th rank, and he attacks the pawns from behind. Eventually, these are the theory that they need to know. But again, we break it down in simple parts. Okay, just for interest's sake, what are the difference between files and ranks versus diagonals? We let them do that. We let them figure that out. Your files and ranks alternate colors, diagonals same color, and your files and ranks are all the same length, whereas diagonals have different lengths. These are important things just to emphasize again, because they learn this, but not necessarily when they learn how to play chess. So if they know this, then they will know the advantage of that also for the bishop on the long diagonal. Bishops, I'll just go through this quickly. Bishops, they want long diagonals. We have good versus bad bishops. In theory, if you have to just put a definition around it, a good bishop is the bishop on the opposite color of your own center pawns, your D and E pawn. Now this is easy for kids to understand. If the bishop is on the same color as your D and E pawn, then that's your bad bishop, the other one is your good bishop. Now how do you make a bad bishop better? You can play the bishop. You can either exchange the bishop for something else, you can push your center pawns off the color of that bishop, or you can play the bishop outside the pawn chain. And here's an opportunity to show what a pawn chain is, for instance. Okay, so these are strategies that they can, if they understand this, the happiness of the pieces, then it will be easier for them to understand when we explain these kind of things. these different principles, for instance. Okay. The knights. Okay, knights want outpost. They want that view. All right? Knights versus bishops. What can bishops do? Here I like to let the kids have a little session, like a debate in a classroom. Who prefer knights? Who prefer bishops? And then I normally have a court case. I'm the judge. And I've now decided that one of these two pieces need to get a promotion. You know, like a bigger value. And you have to state your case. And then the kids will come and tell what the knight can do and what the bishop can do, and they have this debate, healthy debate, which is always very cute. So the bishop is faster than the knight jumps over pieces, the knight is the only piece that can attack any other piece in the chessboard without that piece attacking it back, except for a knight. Yeah? And the knight moves on both colors. And we often forget that. So if they remember these differences, then later on, when we do opening principles, which is much later, much fast forward, this goes into competitive chess now. When do you want a knight and when do you want a bishop in the end game? You know, then they understand, then it's easier to explain this again, because this is grounded now. To say that if you have pawns on both sides of the board, you want a bishop, or a bishop might be better. If you have pawns on one side of the board, you want a knight, because the knight can jump on both colors. You know, so, but first, put that in their memory database, you know, plant it there for them to remember.
I want to talk to you today about the problems on the chessboard you can give to, I don't always like to use the phrase gifted and talented children, because I think all children are gifted and talented. This is more of an extension activities for children who may need to know a little bit more and are capable of thinking on a higher level, even though they might be just 10, 11-year-olds. Of course, most of these problems will be also presentable for every child. You just have to stop at a certain level. You need to give them some help to process it. One of my favorite sayings, the quotes from Albert Einstein about problem solving, is the following. Let me just read it to you as it is. If I had an hour to solve a problem, I'd spend 55 minutes thinking about the problem and 5 minutes thinking about solutions. So the free play, the exploration is much more important than the answer. Yeah? And you have to give that magic. No matter what age the child is, no matter what level the problem is, you've got to let them explore and experiment. Some tips. Use smaller boards. Sometimes to get the solution, it's much easier to analyze it on a smaller board. You'll see that today. You can help kids in problem solving if you part solve it. Like the 8-queen problem, how to put 8 queens on the chessboard so no 2 queens attack each other. We call them independent queens. If you ask them to put all 8 queens on the board, they will struggle. That's not easy. But if you ask them just to put 2 missing queens on there, most of them will be able to solve it. Working backwards from a solution is another useful technique. Where do we want to get? It also works in chess. What's my dream position? Where do I want to arrive? And then work backwards from it. Make it exciting. Tell a story. Make the pieces come alive. An apple rests in chessboard's keep, where danger hides in fruit so deep. Beware the gift that gleams too bright. It may be poison poised as bite. It's going to be poisonous apple. So what do we have here? We just have a chessboard. On the chessboard, we put an apple on h8. It's a 2-player game. You're chopping off parts of the board. Everybody makes either a vertical or a horizontal chop along the files or all the ranks. It doesn't matter if you do horizontal or vertical, it's up to you. Eventually, you will just get the little square with the apple on it. When you are the one with the little square and the apple on it, then you win, because you hand that poisoned apple over to your game partner who has to eat it. Okay? So the aim of the game is for you to make the last cut. So you have the apple. just going to give you the small boards with the chocolate on it. So try it on this board. After you had the initial exploration, to make sure everybody understands, you hand them a smaller board to actually try it out. I'll give it to you. You can take it or you can chop it up to be... If you try it on a 3x3 board, it's very easy to do all the different cuts. Whatever the first cut is, the second person can cut it into a 2x1 square. And then the first person has to chop off the chocolate for him to eat. So from here, it's definitely the second person who wins. Now, how do we get it onto the big board? It's simply, you've got to keep doing what you did with the apple until you get to a 3x3 square. And then you do the special moves. Yeah, but up to now, the second player should cut to a square. Was it? They will be peaceful. Now, so the problem is the following. We are going to place white queens and black queens on the board, the same number of white queens and the same number of black queens, and as many as possible, but the white army has to be peaceful with the black army, so no white queen is allowed to attack a black queen, and obviously vice versa. Okay, so the white queens obviously can attack each other, they are in the same army, but they can't attack the opposite army. Now let's see some examples for smaller board. Again, I would then try with examples for smaller boards with the children. For a 3x3 board, you can put one black and one white queen like that. For a 4x4 board, you can do this arrangement and some symmetrical ones as well with 2 white and 2 black queens. You can't fit 3 white and 3 black queens so that they stay peaceable. 5x5 square, 4 white, 4 black. Then we have the 6x6 board. There is an arrangement there. It's 5 pair of queens. 7x7 board is 7 pair of queens. And our main interest is the 8x8 board. I'm telling you, you can fit 9 pairs of queens there. Of course, you don't have to tell the children this. You can just give them queens and let them first explore and try and put as many queens as possible on the board like that. Once they've seen some examples for smaller boards, they understand what's going on. So I have got some queens for you. I've got 40 queens. That's about 4 table worth. How many tables we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8. So I need you to pair up, so 2 tables to come together. I'll give you the queens, and I would like you to try. I'm going to get rid of this now to try and come up what solutions you can. Can you do maybe 7, maybe even 8? If you are very, very good, you might be able to get 9. So I quickly remove this so you can't see it. So
what do we need to know here? So we know these pieces total 30. We know what types of pieces they are. So I'd say, okay, what shall we use? And I actually want the children to decide. Do they use Numicon? Do they get the blue 9 and it's the knight? She's the light green? Do they get those 2 colours? Do you use the 9s and the 3s? Do you use chess pieces? How are we going to do this? Because as a mathematician, we want children to be able to come up with an approach, a process, a starting point, and everyone has got something valuable to say. You can always find something in what a child has to say. Any ideas? How would we do this? Strategies, collaboration, quick tasks, progressively harder tasks, and here's just something a bit different, an investigation, okay? It comes from a really wonderful website called Enrich Maths. It's my favourite type of maths, where you give children one problem and they spend the whole lesson immersed in it. Okay? It's open-ended, different solutions. Dear Harris Cluedo. So you have to figure, each coloured counter is a chess piece. You have to figure out which colour represents which chess piece. And on my sheets, I start off and then we'll go through the levels of challenge.
Anybody teaching games in school has got certain big constraints, and the first is that the amount of time you've got to play is very limited. So I did hear it earlier today. Chess is about strategic thinking, long-term thinking, etc. That's fine, except a chess lesson, it might be half an hour. You know, you've only got 30 minutes. You've hardly got out of the opening if you're playing a game of chess. So to what extent is that approach going to bear fruit? Children have got diverse interests and abilities. Some children are very keen, some children are not so keen, shall we say, are easily distractible, and trying to get them all to pay attention is a challenge in the classroom. Of course, that's the main thing. We need to find ways to engage every child. So this is the concept of differentiation. And by the way, one of the tools you have in differentiation is to give different games to different children depending upon their levels of interest. So we have there's an awful lot of strategy games that are possible, whereas there's kind of only one game of chess. So you'll be leaning on strategy games if you want to do some differentiation. In order to teach any game, you have to give very clear and simple explanations. This has always been the talk given earlier by Ansel. It has to be very simple. Everything you say to a child must be very, very simple. If the concept's very complicated, like en passant or checkmate, then skip it, leave it for another time. Wait till they're ready, and enough of them will be able to pick it up. So the elements of the game are, what are the moves, how does play take place, and what's the winning condition. So you need to identify those three elements for every game. So you get that across, and then for any particular move, how would you evaluate that move? And what are the principles that you would apply? What sort of factors come into play when you're deciding to play a move in that game? So let's look at abstract strategy games, and on the same balance of kind of pros and cons, strategy games, clearly an intellectual challenge, perhaps somewhat less of a challenge, but still way beyond the ability of most kids. So the approach that we are calling this is sort of the games compendium approach. You have a compendium of games. These games are kind of tested in practice in different environments by different people, and we get a lot of feedback on these. We give the children choice as to which games they want to play, and they can learn new games, and they love doing that. Okay, just a bit of theory about gameplay and the game mindset. What we're trying to do is get children into a mindset that they like to play games, so that these are strategy games. We'll have to be happy to think about, well, if I do this, and if they do that, and if I do this and they do that, and think of some of the options. Now, not every child wants to do that, but if you can kind of introduce them to that, then they're in the game mindset. And by the way, that's the same mindset that you will require if you're doing mathematics. It could go this way, the angle could go that way, it could go that way, and we have to have a solution of both cases. So you just have to always be looking at what the options are in any particular situation. Okay. So let's start then with Fox and Hounds.
introduce pieces with mini games. What I will show now, many exercises, many mini games. Just not the show how the setup of the chessboard and say, okay, let's start playing. We are introducing the piece. We are introducing some exercises, mini games connected to this piece.
So what we're going to talk about today is something called mini games. And the idea of mini games is to get a pawn to the other side of the board. So when I was a kid, right, which is a long time ago admittedly, I used to like this game called Fox and Geese. Has anyone heard of a game called Fox and Geese? They have like a fox, right? And then the geese would try to come down the board, and then the fox would have more power than the geese, you know, would be able to move further, but there was more of the geese. So the idea is you try to get the geese down to the other end of the board. So it's a little bit like this. So the whole purpose of mini games is to really create kind of knowledge in your own mind. And that could possibly relate as well to normal chess. So it might look on the face of it to be pointless, but I do feel that in the course of actually working on this book, that hopefully is going to be produced by FIDE, that is actually helped some of my end games. So hopefully I'm going to talk you through some of that. So in this position, hang on, I've actually given it away. There's only one way to win a pawn, right? Maybe we could get rid of notation and then ask some questions about, then it might be make it. So in this position, there's only one way. I've kind of given it away. So there's rook d1 is the only way to win a pawn. However, bear in mind here, let's continue the game from here. So we know that white is going to take on d7. I just showed out the arrow, if that works. No, it doesn't seem to work. Never mind. Anyway, try it with the left mouse. Yeah, white's going to take on d7. So what would black play? And what do we think the result will be? Bear in mind that black can play 2 moves at the start with a pawn. What do we think the result will be? Do you think the pawns will get there first? A pawn has to only get to the end of the board. If it gets to the end of the board and the rook takes it, it's too late for the rook. It's going to lose. So what do we think the result will be? A win for white or a win for black?
Win for white.
A win for white, you think? Okay, so let's play through the game, right? So let's say I push a pawn now. What are you going to play? You take the pawn, right? Now, so one of the tricks, you know, when I'm trying to write this book, obviously I'm trying to talk about the strategies for mini games. And one of the tricks for mini games, and what I've noticed, because I didn't know anything about it, Rita told me, you know, I'd like you to write this book for mini games, very kind of her, right? Rita Atkins. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. However, I didn't know anything about mini games. So when I looked through the strategy, one of the things that stood out for me is you should try and push the most far advanced pawn first. So black has 2 pawns here, which are the most far advanced. Pawn on g5, the pawn on e5. So let's say we go here now. What should white play? The most obvious move. What would be the most obvious move?
E4. Obviously. E3.
Guys, when you calculate chess positions, there's one thing that you calculate first. You calculate captures and checks. Absolutely most important thing ever. And that pertains to, that also includes mini games as well. So in this position, yeah, the most obvious move is to take the pawn because I've got to get rid of all your pawns. I can't win the game unless I get rid of all your pawns. It might not be the best move. It might. I don't know whether it's the best move. I mean, half time I'm guessing with this stuff because you can't calculate it with an engine anyway because engines don't recognise the position. With no king, they don't recognise the position. It might well not have been the best move. What did you have in mind instead? Yeah, but then if let's say I push that pawn, you might regret not taking a pawn, right? So if I now take here, what are you going to play? Yeah, because I need two pawns coming down the board in tandem with each other. If I go here, you're going to go here and try and cut me off. However, if I go here, now I'm going to have to deal with the H pawn and the E pawn at the same time. That becomes difficult. This is where the pawns start to get on top, because the rook cannot deal with both pawns at the same time. You know, you can't be two places, you know, with one piece. So you could go rook E6. What am I going to play now? Bear in mind, I only have to get a pawn down to the other end of the board. H3, yeah, because now if I take the pawn, what are you playing? This should be a simple move now. H2, and then we win the game. So if we go back to that position earlier, here, so the other obvious move is if you take. Now what happens there? Another trick with mini games, if you are on the side of the pawns, you keep them together, exactly. Pawns are stronger as a unit, right? You imagine if you're a football game and you just try and play the game all by yourself. We've all tried to do it in the playground, right? Try to score that wonder goal that we saw on TV, you know, by Maradona. But it just doesn't happen very often, right? You're better as a team. Even I'm not very a team player myself, you know, I'm individualist. But F5 screams out as the most obvious move here, right? I think both moves are playable, right? So what does white play now? So you could win a pawn. You could win a pawn, which would be great, but the problem is these pawns are already too far advanced. So what am I going to play now? E3, yeah. And then when you take, I go E2. E2.
My motivation for coming to this event was meeting other educators, and also I thought it's a good second step after attending the preparations of teachers course by FIDE. It would be a nice second step, further develop these skills that were taught in that course. Also meeting the educators and the speakers, and finally, how did I enjoy the event? Basically, just getting more mini games in the arsenal and having these so you can use them in the classroom, and you can use them to teach some concepts that are applicable to chess. That was good. Some takeaways was aggressive rules is quite important in teaching younger children. That's about it. Thank you very much.
I was motivated to come to this event. I teach basic chess to primary school children, and I just wanted more ideas, strategies and activities. I've come away with lots of ideas, lots of ways to incorporate differentiation and make chess more fun and enjoyable for everyone. My takeaways are showing that chess is for everyone, chess is fun, and also it allows me to carry on teaching chess at my primary school. So thank you for an amazing day of learning.
I teach chess in schools and communities and prisons, and I was very interested to come up with some new ideas on how to deliver chess lessons. It was really interesting, lots of ideas that I'd never have thought of myself, and lots of different approaches to teaching. Definitely a big takeaway was that you can teach chess without having to have all the pieces on the board or even any pieces on the board, and you can be really creative about what you can bring in terms of colours or Lego or counters or paper and scissors. Yeah, I'm really going to take that away. But it's not all about the chess pieces or the chessboard. There are lots of really creative things you can do around chess.